Welcome to Passion Fruits, a passion project for passionate people. I'm your blind melon, Daniel.
And I'm your tomato with a tude, Adam.
Jesus. That's one of the few of yours that I actually like. Alliteration.
You know what, Daniel? Well done on actually using the fruit as well. I'm very proud of you.
Suck my cucumber. So, Adam, what do we do on this podcast?
Daniel, this podcast is just one of a kind.
Vulture rated us #1 for 2022.
They can see into the future.
Yeah.
Yes. It is. It is a goal that will soon be realized. But on this podcast, on Passion Fruits, we talk about how, and I guess more specifically, what takes a person from being a casual fan of something to being a passionate fanatic of that thing. And thing is an all-encompassing term. We talk about music bands, we talk about movies, books, hobbies, activities, jobs, just anything and everything in between. We can talk about how people like to pick their noses or to, put on lip balm, every 5 seconds. It could be anything. Anything, I tell you.
That sounds like someone who may need some help rather than talking about it on a podcast.
Yeah,
but
you know what? It's a good thing that we're both authorized psychologists. That doctors, if you
right? Well, speaking of doctors, we have a great episode. A great subject that we're going to talk about today with a good friend of the podcast, #1 fan on the show, beats out all the other fans. Guest, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, Daniel. So I am Orange Goo Goo Robert.
And you're here to talk to us about
picking my nose. I think that's what.
I'm here to talk about lip balm and putting it on every 5 seconds.
No,
go ahead.
I'm here to talk about the incredible television show Scrubs.
Woohoo! And we are very much looking forward to digging in and talking more about Scrubs. Like, what is a scrub? Is it? And I'm assuming that we are not talking about the music video, "Don't Want No Scrubs" by TLC, right?
Not that classic.
How many times are we going to make that joke on this episode?
We should put like a dinger.
Scrubs.
Yeah,
a counter. I'll count every time someone's mentioned it. All right,
exactly.
That's once. Robert is here to talk to us about his love and passion for the sitcom Scrubs. Does anybody want to start on Passion Fruitspedia? Adam, Robert?
Sure. I'll start us out with Passion Fruitspedia. So to set the stage, if you will.
Yes, please.
Scrubs is an American medical comedy drama television series created by Bill Lawrence that aired from October 2nd, 2001, all the way through March 17th, 2010, originally on NBC and later on ABC. It follows the lives and exploits of doctors at the fictional Sacred Heart Hospital, which is a teaching hospital. And the title is a play on surgical scrubs, aka the garb that people wear during that medical professionals wear during surgeries or medical activities. Those things.
Medical activities. Those kind of important things like medical activity.
Exactly. But it's also a term for a low-ranking person because at the beginning of the series, most of the main characters are medical interns. AKA, if we harken back to that song, "I Don't Want No Scrubs," I'm pretty sure TLC would not want to get with any of the original cast members because they are low-ranking people.
Exactly. Yeah. They were hanging out their best friend's ride.
Yep. And essentially this is all a big socio-political commentary on classism and the modern caste system within U.S. culture. It's very serious, very,
I
very
was
serious.
like, what section is Adam in on the outline? Yes.
Just further commentary.
Exactly.
The series was noted, and as we continue with Passion Fruitspedia, and Robert, you're the passionate and you're the our resident expert, so feel free to hop in here whenever you want to. But
you're a resident, haha, like a medical guy.
Yeah,
do you get it?
Doing medical activities.
Exactly. Yeah, Robert. What do you have to say about the show, other than what Adam said?
Well, besides the fact that Daniel, I think, was very wrong in calling it a sitcom.
Sorry, a dramedy.
Dramedy is probably more correct. Yeah, I mean,
sorry,
I think, it's a great exploitation of understanding what young people that are in the medical field go through. And yeah, it's definitely done in a funny way, but I think it's also has a lot of reality to it and deals with death and those sorts of things. So it's not a standard typical comedy like some of the other shows.
Who does it star, Robert?
Well, it stars a couple different folks, but Zach Braff is the main person. You might have heard his name before. Very famous Garden State Grammy winner for his mixtape for the Garden State movie. But he's one of the main ones. Then Turk is Donald Faison. Elliot Reed, Sarah Chalk, Judy Reyes. There's a great cast of folks, and a lot of people, in my opinion, that weren't super well known at the beginning. So like Perry Cox had John C. McGinley had done Platoon and a couple other movies, but for the most part, it was people that I didn't know before Scrubs.
Yeah, I mean, for Jade, for Zach Braff and Sarah Chalk and Judy Reyes, I mean, that was pretty much their breakout role, right? Because Donald Faison had done Clueless, yeah, and Remember the Titans, I think, right beforehand. Yeah, but I mean, clearly he wasn't the main character in either of those movies.
Right.
But.
Is Zach Braff trying to EGOT? I'm sure he got an Emmy for
he's talked about it. So he hasn't won an Emmy. I think the only thing he's won is a Grammy. Right. I think the only thing he's won is a Grammy, and when he talked about winning an EGOT, that was the last thing he expected to get was a Grammy.
That shows you how fucking easy it is to get a Grammy. Yeah. We could probably get a Grammy by submitting one of our fucking episodes.
Well, and Donald makes fun of him a lot on their podcast, and because he literally won it for Garden State, which was just a mixtape that he put together.
Right.
He won a Grammy for putting together a good mixtape that he wrote something on.
Oh, that's amazing. I had no idea.
Yeah.
Good time.
I'm learning so much.
Oh yeah. We will get into this later on in the episode as well, but the show ran for technically 9 seasons. Technically. But it's among the Scrubs fan base, season 9 is rarely spoken upon. But I will make commentary on season 9 later on down the road. And obviously, Robert, you're welcome to chime in on that. I think
what about me, Adam? Am I allowed to chime in?
No,
okay. Not at all. I'm just in the back seat for this ride.
and for. Correct me if I'm wrong, Robert, but I think because ABC developed the show, but it was aired on NBC, and it made some weird scheduling stuff going on between there. And originally it aired on NBC, and then season 9 was on ABC. I think
season 8 might have started on ABC because that's when they did a couple episodes that are closer tied to.
Yep, I've got it right here, guys. Season 8 starts on ABC, and season 9.
Yep.
But before that, NBC all the time. NBC stands for never be closing. ABC stands for always be closing.
There it is.
I think the other thing is but it was so weird. And once again, we can talk about this a little bit later on, but because it was in this weird stage of limbo between the two networks, Scrubs never really got the airtime, like the prime airtime that it really needed to have for full success, because it was always just moved around. But I always think it's
had crazy numbers, like crazy high numbers.
Yeah.
Even though it wasn't in like primetime slots like other shows.
Yeah.
I think season 2 is still one of like NBC's highest rating seasons that they've had.
It's crazy. I'm looking at the ratings right now. The premiere of season 2 had 22.3 million viewers.
It's just Colin Hay coming in.
You know, that's what we get.
Is that what you're talking about?
Exactly. Yeah, I am. Yeah, it's Colin Hay and, you know, the whole gang getting back together for season 2.
Oh, yeah.
Just like we're bringing it all back together for season 3. Second episode, season 3 right here. Well, yeah, as Robert corrected me, this is a American dramedy that aired on NBC, then later ABC. But really what we really want to get down into is Robert and Adam, and maybe myself a little bit. How did you guys get into this show? Because I know that nowadays a lot of people are talking about The Office. Like, The Office is always on people's mind as like the great sitcom, and I know that Scrubs isn't a sitcom, but the great sitcom that came out during those like early to mid 2000s. I know Scrubs is up there, but you often don't hear about it in the same conversation as about like The Office or other shows of that time. So how did you guys get into Scrubs? Whatever the hell this show is called.
Robert, take it away for us.
Sure.
If you want.
I have an incredible story. Actually,
here we go.
Missed the first couple seasons because it started in 2001. I was, I think, 10 or 11 in 2001, so pretty young to be watching some of this stuff. But I watched reruns on Comedy Central late middle school, early high school. And that's where I started to, like, I would just have it on right before I went to sleep. Because I had a TV in my room. That was really cool.
Whoa.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
Damn, who knew we were hanging out with the coolest kid on the block?
Yeah. Exactly.
I'm pretty sure Robert would not have been wanting to have been my friend in high school. That makes me really sad. He was like, "Do you have a TV in your room?" No. Get out of here, loser.
From 9 to 10 on Comedy Central. No, but I remember watching it and thinking it was funny. But in college, it was a weird time. I had a breakup that was kind of tough, and there was like a couple of weeks or a month that I decided I was going to read all of Harry Potter, watch all of Scrubs, and teach myself how to play guitar a little bit better. So that's when I became a true fan of Scrubs.
I would imagine that during that time going through a breakup, I mean, like, Scrubs is never about relationships. It's always like very surface level.
Yeah.
JD always has like a very stable relationship with whoever he's with, like not going through multiple partners in a season, you know. All right. So I get it.
Yeah.
No daddy issues, no mommy issues, you know, nothing of the sort.
So college was when you really became like a passionate fanatic for Scrubs.
Yeah, and so I guess I watched like season 7 and 8 like in high school, early college, and then I think season 9 came out when I was in college, and I was like, oh, okay. But then after that, just decided to rewatch it, and it was incredible. So that's when I made sure I like hit every episode because, you know, watching on TV, you'd probably miss some. I'd gotten some seasons on DVD, but for the most part, I wanted to make sure to watch it all the way through. So.
Yeah, I was going to ask. I mean, this is still, I'm assuming, pre-streaming era for the most part. Because, I mean, Scrubs has only come on Hulu and Amazon Prime within the last year and a half.
Right.
So I think the only opportunity to watch it was either like random, you know, syndicated reruns or on DVD.
Yeah.
So how did you manage that if you were going to watch the entirety of the series?
Before streaming? Yeah, binging before streaming is quite the
crazy
conundrum. So I acquired a couple of seasons and then just in my dorm found people that had the other DVDs.
You just knocked on people's doors.
Hey, you got
that Scrubs?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I had like 5 or 6 seasons of Scrubs, so it was only a couple that I was missing. But
thank God.
DVD.
Whew.
Weird.
Do you still have those DVDs?
I think I have like 2 seasons maybe, and I'm pretty sure I got 1 or 2 of them from a Blockbuster.
Oh, when they were closing down, you were like, got to scoop those up.
Scoop up the Scrubs, yeah.
Scoop up the Scrubs.
So, yeah, that was my not very impressive getting into Scrubs story.
Well, I thought it was pretty impressive. Going through a breakup, Harry Potter, guitar. So how good did you get at guitar?
Really shitty. Not good at guitar. But I'm pretty good at knowing what's going on in Harry Potter and okay at knowing what's going on in Scrubs. So
yeah, you like Harry Potter and Scrubs just like pushed all of the guitar info out of your brain. And
yeah, and we'll get to, I'm sure we'll talk about what we love about Scrubs so much later on. But one of the big things that I did was I would hear things on Scrubs and then like search them and try to learn how to play some of the songs. So
nice.
Big piece for me as well.
That is one of those things about Scrubs, and once again, we will definitely talk about this later on. But I always loved the soundtrack to it. Like, there was some phenomenal music that I discovered, or at least recognized on Scrubs that have been translated and transferred over to this. That's one of the reasons I watched Garden State, was because I knew Zach Braff had a how he put together a very good soundtrack for that movie. But I always appreciated what he did for music on the show. So
Grammy Award-winning soundtrack for
Grammy Award-winning Zach Braff.
One weird thing, because we've been watching it on Hulu. There was one episode where there was one song, and I know that like that's a huge issue with a lot of like the streaming services now, is that like when they first aired the show, the channel who was airing the show had the license to the song.
Mm-hmm.
Now when it's streaming, they don't have license to the song. But there was one episode we watched where...
Wait, can I try to guess, Daniel, which one it was?
Sure. Go ahead.
Was it the scene where JD and... Well, this happens every season. But one of the seasons where JD and Elliot hook up? Because it's the song is Coral Dream. The band is the Coral Dreaming of You. And it's like doom, 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 doom.
No, no. This song
like some Latin song, and it's very different.
This song was about like Jesus and like getting on your knees and like literally was talking about Jesus and spreading your arms wide and praising Jesus, and it was very out of place. Yeah, it was an interesting one. Anyway, that's neither here nor there, but an interesting time that we live in with streaming services and such.
Right.
So, Robert, what you say you started watching it in like middle and high school, but what originally pulled you to the show itself?
I thought to be funny, you had to watch Comedy Central. So that's kind of what made me like turn it on at night. But yeah, I think.
Were you there like taking notes? It's like ha 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 ha.
Funny.
That's how you get a laugh
when the guy says this. So actually, so medicine is something I work in healthcare. I'm not a clinician, so I don't actually help people. But it was always something very intriguing to me. My mom was a pastor growing up, so I got used to going to visit people in the congregation that were in the hospital. I was like a therapy dog type thing. So I went to hospitals really and nursing homes a lot growing up. And so it just kind of triggered an interest, and seeing these Scrubs really opened up my eyes to saying, oh, young people that are human and normal and silly and broken, and they become physicians and help treat people. And so I think that really opened my eyes and interested me in the show. And I thought it was really funny.
Well, I have to say that even though you're in the medical field, but you say you don't help people, you help us by coming on our episode, Robert.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
And they say that laughter is the best medicine. So really,
right.
It is like you are a clinician right now, Robert.
Like fucking Patch Adams. Are you Patch Adams?
I would love to be Patch Adams.
A swimming pool full of noodles. Sorry. We've actually just been watching Patch Adams over and over again. I don't know who Zach
Season
Braff
6
or...
of Patch Adams. That's what you're watching?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's the Cartoon Network cartoon version of Patch Adams called Young Patch Adams.
It's the episode called My Adam's Patch in season 9 that no one's ever seen.
Right, yeah. It's the episode I made.
Your Scrubs fan fiction, of which we know you've written a lot of.
Wait, Robert, do you have Scrubs fan fiction?
I don't.
So I try and... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I feel like I do have a little bit of imposter syndrome because I do love this show, Passion Fruits, and I've listened to a lot of you guys and really enjoy it. And I've always wanted to be on it. It's taken until season 3. I was hoping to get on earlier. But
you got to come up with some bullshit like Will, like Hamburg steak.
Exactly, but that's where I've struggled. I'm very interested in a lot of things, and we'll go into it for a couple months. So it's always interesting to hear y'all's perspective on things because I get to learn what actual fans of things like. But Scrubs is something that I'm definitely very interested in.
Daniel, it sounds like we have a core demographic of 1 so far. So we really hit that.
When we have our episode where we talk about you and me, Adam, then we'll make sure that Robert is our guest. Nobody else.
I'm a fan of Passion Fruits. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Robert. That means a lot.
It does.
So we've heard kind of how Robert has got into Scrubs. How? Because it also sounds like that you're very passionate about this show. How did you find Scrubs? How did you become so passionate about this show?
So similarly, I can't remember. So I watched it starting in high school. I actually can't remember exactly when it came on, but I always remember that it was on. It was like it was the first couple seasons were syndicated by that point in time, and I would watch it. I can't remember exactly which channel I was watching it on, but I always knew that I could come home from school and watch it. 2 or 3 episodes or something like that.
Crack open a Miller.
High
Life. Turn on Comedy Central, watch some Scrubs.
Yeah, pour through some AP history work and be like, exactly, time for some Scrubs. Let's crack open a cold one. This is watch the news at 6:30 and then watch some Scrubs. Yeah, that's how I got into it, and I had not seen seasons all the way through, probably until after we graduated college, because that was the first time I had access to the entire
internet
stuff. Yeah, exactly.
We went to this Amish college where they didn't allow the internet. So yeah, I was gonna say I don't remember you really watching it in college.
So the funny thing is, it's part of the reason there is, obviously, one, we lived with other people, and it was
they were hogging the remote and everything.
Almost. Some people were just playing Halo all the time. Never got a chance to do anything.
Dick. Damn it.
I remember talking to a couple of my girlfriend at that point in time's friends who liked Scrubs, because that was the other thing. No one else liked Scrubs that I knew of, and so I wasn't gonna go along and watch Scrubs by myself, because that would have been weird. In our dorm common room or whatnot, and I didn't have any seasons on DVD, so I couldn't rewatch them in that sense.
You weren't cool like Robert.
Exactly, I wasn't cool like Robert. But I remember watching the last episode of season 8, my finale. I remember watching that with one of our friends back then, the only other person who liked Scrubs, and I remember tearing up a little bit about that. But then I actually purchased some of the seasons on Amazon when they became available to stream, just because I wanted to watch the seasons. And then as soon as it came on Hulu, I've been binging it essentially. So yeah, that's how I got into it. And I remember it was so witty, and it was so different from a lot of the other comedy shows on TV, because one of the things that we talked about before, it's not a sitcom. It's a single camera show, and more aligns to those people who are who like like The Office or like Parks and Recreation, or any of those kind of single camera shows. And that was actually one of the things that they noted about Scrubs. It was one of the first single camera comedies that wasn't, obviously, a four camera sitcom that became popular. And no one thought that a show like that would do well, because people don't, the audiences at that time didn't understand single camera comedies. They just didn't think it would do very well. So I just remember it was quirky, but it was really serious, and there were some really good, kind of very meaningful things to take away from that. But and obviously, we'll talk about it later on, but it's clearly kind of spawned a whole genre of single camera comedy / dramedy type TV shows from here on out. So yeah, that's how I got into it.
Cool.
Daniel, how about yourself?
Yes, we'll make the rounds. Haha, like Scrubs making the rounds.
Nice.
Am I right? Robert, are you still there?
Very clever.
Robert, are you still a big fan of our podcast?
Yeah, it's like I'm listening to it right now. It's incredible.
Perfect. So yeah, I'm not as big a fan of. Well, sorry.
What? Get out of here.
No, I didn't get into Scrubs and have only really started watching all of the seasons until after we talked to Robert about doing this episode, and he sent his favorite episode list over. But I remember, like, kind of like you guys were talking about, watching the syndicated episodes on Comedy Central. They were the later seasons because Carla was pregnant and she was going through postpartum depression. But I never watched like a season in its entirety. I felt like I had seen some episodes before we started going through the whole series. And there are definitely some that I remember seeing. But otherwise, I don't know. Like, I also didn't really get into The Office or until much later in life, Parks and Rec until like, 2 or 3 seasons until it got off the air. So I've never been, I'm really like into highbrow stuff like Breaking Bad and The Simpsons, and really like, smart stuff. Like really erudite TV.
Oh yeah, totally. I really get that. A lot of the jokes that you tell, I have to go back and think through them, and
right.
Flip through. I have to break out my abacus and see your joke structure to really make complete sense out of it.
Really, like, people don't know the magic of my editing. Like, I have to edit out 5 minutes of blank pauses before the laughs, because that's how long it takes Adam and our guests to get my jokes. It's just like, that's quite the thinker.
Yes, it is. You know what? I think I've seen your work in the New Yorker. Writing all those joke columns for the New Yorker.
Those witty comics that you see talking about golf and such. But yeah, just like Robert, I thought that to be funny, you had to be on Comedy Central and get your own Comedy Central special. So here we are. This is our special, right?
Is this your audition for Comedy Central?
I'm trying to get my own tight hour for my own special, and trying to get on SNL, man. I can do a wicked Harry Carey impression. So anyway,
that's your ticket to ride. Your Harry Carey.
Really, I'm just gonna do a bunch of Will Ferrell impressions that have already been done.
Show up in your underwear and with a cowbell, and you'll do whatever you can.
Exactly. But let's get into kind of talking about the show and talking about the episodes that Robert sent over, because as we've done with our previous TV show episodes like The Simpsons and Frasier, we had guests or ourselves create a list of our favorite episodes that we think like kind of capture the essence of the TV show and what makes us so passionate. And I see on the outline, both of you have your cursors on the episode list. So
yeah, but yeah, we can definitely run through some like larger themes about why we're so passionate about Scrubs. But yeah, Robert, if you want to kick us off, just like and my question to you is, you started watching this back in kind of middle and high school, and obviously you've rewatched it a number of times, but what keeps you coming back to it? And is there a specific example within one of the episodes that you have listed here that exemplifies that really well?
Yeah, so I think one of the key things, and I'm looking through my list right now, a lot of them have really memorable music moments in them.
Mm-hmm.
So like one of the ones I listed in was My Own Personal Jesus, which is kind of not that big of an episode. I don't think many people love it, but it's a Christmas episode where Turk has to work on call. And there's a moment that doesn't really make sense in the plot point, where he realizes that this woman is under a tree and he's going to go save her life. And as a surgeon, resident is going to save her life and deliver her child. But Sinner Man is playing, and it's just like such a great moment. Like you just see Donald Faison sprinting and they're playing Sinner Man. And then My Screw Up is probably one of the top 2 episodes, I would think, in most people's book, and launched Joshua Radin's career with Winter, which is like the first song he ever wrote. And he was just friends with Zach Braff, and he sent it to Bill Lawrence, and they put it on the show. And it was like, I listened to that podcast recently, and it was just like recorded on a simple mic on a Mac, and he sent it to Bill Lawrence and put it on. So just thinking back of a lot of the common theme is like the emotional connection that a lot of the music has. And so I watched season 8, the final episode today, and caught myself getting a little teary-eyed. Maybe it was just being so excited to join you guys on the show.
That happens to a lot of people.
But it could have been the Book of Love song that plays at the end. It just really grabs me. And I think both Zach Braff and the writers, and I know Krista Miller is a big influence on bringing a lot of the music in. Mm-hmm. But it's just like Brett Dennen, didn't really know about him beforehand, but kind of learned about him through the show. Matt Nathanson, Colin Hay. I had no idea who he was before the show. So there's a lot of the show that wraps up in my mind with the music. And unfortunately, the streaming has changed that with a little bit, as Daniel, you mentioned earlier, but it's just still that's the piece that really gets me.
Yeah. Well, and like we've kind of talked about it in our music episodes. And I know that, Robert, you were kind of talking about with how you got into Scrubs at kind of like while you were watching the episodes and watching the seasons earlier than college, but then when you really got into it and like watched it all the way through was in college, going through a breakup. Like we've talked about on our music episodes, how music can like shape your experience and shape kind of how you deal with stuff.
For
and
sure.
You like gravitate towards a certain type of music. Like we've talked about Adam getting into Foo Fighters kind of in like middle and high school, and like myself, Metallica in high school. It's like there are certain times in your life where you're like very vulnerable and very open to certain almost kinds of music. And like, especially with Scrubs, like the soundtrack is like so on point that it can like, even just having like one great song in an episode can like make that your favorite episode.
Absolutely.
So I totally get that. That's really interesting that I know the music plays a huge part in the show, but it's really interesting that it's played a huge part in your kind of fandom.
Yeah.
It's interesting, Robert, like at that song Overkill by Colin Hay, like that's one of my earworm songs that just kind of that first stanza, I can't get to sleep. I think about the implications. It plays over and over in my head randomly, like for no apparent reason. But yeah, I think what's interesting about the streaming world is that those original soundtracks aren't all intact on who, like we were talking beforehand. So I really wonder what people's impression of the show is now if it's not completely paired with that original soundtrack. I find that interesting. I'd love to hear from someone who has not to see if the change in music takes away at times from the experience.
Yeah, and I've gotten to the point where I can watch an episode, and for the most part, I can usually pick out when there's like a song that doesn't really fit,
Mhm.
especially if it's an episode that I really like. And a lot of times I'll just like stop it and go to YouTube and rewatch part of that episode to hear it the right way. But yeah, that's a yeah, it's just, and the other piece that really speaks to me is so many individuals in that cast have incredible voices. Like Sam Lloyd, the lawyer,
Yeah.
the Worthless Peons, like they are so talented. Donald Faison has an incredible voice. Judy Reyes, like, and one of the earlier seasons, they have a music interlude, and it's actually a Colin Hayes song, but the woman is about to die, and she's singing, and it breaks to different people. And I think that's really the first time that you see like Donald sing by himself, and you're like, holy crap, he's incredible. Like, it's just wild to see how talented these people are. So yeah, music is incredible in Scrubs.
They've had a number of fairly famous artists that have contributed to the soundtrack, and as you were saying before, Robert, there are a number of artists who've been discovered because of the Scrubs soundtrack, and I think that almost sets the tone for other shows that understand how meaningful a soundtrack can be even in like a 22-minute, or half an hour long comedy show. There are other TV shows that are known for their good soundtracks. One of them,
like Grey's Anatomy. Yeah,
exactly. Or The OC, or Glee. But no, I think that's really really interesting. And I have a question for you, Robert. You said your mother was in the medical, or sorry, you kind of encountered a lot of experiences when you were younger, going to nursing homes and care facilities, and you were in the medical field now, not as a clinician. But one of the themes that during the podcast and is that Bill Lawrence and his team of writers and producers really tried to stay as true to giving a realistic impression of the medical field as possible. So did that have any connection to you as to why you continue watching it? What's your impression there?
Yeah, I don't know if, so right now I work for a health system, and I'm very corporate. When I first started, like right out of school, I was in a hospital and like walking the floors every day, seeing people in scrubs every day. And yeah, it kind of did.
And you were like, you're just like that TV show. You're just like that TV show Scrubs.
Yeah.
Which one's the JD? Which one's the Turk?
I need to hang out with Judy a little bit, with Carla.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think so. The AMA nominated it and said it's the most realistic, I guess, medical TV show. So American Medical Association said that. And so as someone that doesn't know that and has just like heard it through CPT codes and procedure codes and that sort of thing, yeah, they're actually using things that make sense. On Fake Doctors, Real Friends, Zach Braff's and Donald Faison's podcast, they have a lot of people that call in and are helping, like our nursing staff or physicians that have watched it. And there's even physicians that have called in and said in med school they would watch it and like try to catch up as they're doing rounds with Dr. Cox or Dr. Kelso and try to hear about stuff, which is really, really clever. But I think that the most real thing to me was, I guess, the original JD wanted them to make sure that it was grounded and it was like that people do die. And I think that was a big thing. So my first episode that I think was probably the most profound to me, that doesn't really that I don't really know for music, was the My Old Lady episode in season 1. And at the beginning, it's JD walking in, and he has the voiceover. It says, they say that one in 3 people that enter a hospital will die there. And then they follow Elliot and Donald, or Turk and JD, and they each get a patient. And at the end, spoiler alert, all 3 of them die. And I think that was a kind of setting the tone of, yes, this is a comedy. This is silly. They're going to use these big words, and Dr. Cox is going to rant. But also they're going to deal with death in a really like legitimate way. Like the one person is a lady that decides it's her time to go, and then there's a young person. I mean, it's just in my opinion, just a great view on working in a hospital, because you're not going to go there in most specialties. You're going to have people that die.
Right.
So with that reality is really, really cool.
Yeah, I think that's one of the kind of connecting themes throughout the show, and especially with Dr. Cox, or John C. McGinley, the actor. With that character really kind of testifies to the fact that life isn't fair, and it's their jobs to deal with it, essentially, and it's not easy, and it should never get easy, and it really highlights the humanity and a lot of the medical professionals' experiences throughout, whether it be on the TV show or in real life. And that was the My Old Lady episode is phenomenal for that. And I remember, not to harken back to the podcast to the rewatch podcast too much, but they said that was a really contentious episode, that so early on in the show is to kill off 3 people and have it a little bit of a darker theme to it, as opposed to kind of the dance monkey dance attitude of most comedies at that time, which I found fascinating.
I think Bill Lawrence might have been on that episode or around that.
I think you're right. Yeah.
And that's what I believe he was saying, that the network wasn't cool with like 3 people dying in a 30-minute comedy. Like, that doesn't make sense. But it really set the tone of, this is going to be funny, but it's also going to try to be somewhat realistic, and somewhat grounded in the medical field, and having empathy fatigue. And I think Dr. Cox has that in season 2. And I mean, it's really, really powerful, because you get a string of episodes that are just like fun and silly and kind of stonerish, and then they just kind of like hit you with like really tough stuff. So it's really good.
Going back to kind of the episode and continuing to kind of talk about the list that you gave us, Robert, which we'll of course post in our show notes so people can watch some of Robert's favorite Scrubs episodes. The My Mistake, and that can kind of lead into a broader discussion about, but like My Mistake has, gosh dang it, My Mistake, My Screw Up has Brendan Fraser as a guest star. And he was in a couple episodes previously before My Screw Up, but was just phenomenal in this episode. Phenomenal.
So Daniel, did you watch that for the first time recently?
Yes. Yeah.
Tell me more about like what you went through when you realized what happened. I'm just curious from your perspective, what you thought of that episode.
I think I said, "Oh shit," and then I kind of like, before JD was like, "Where do you think we are?" I think I was like, "Something's up." And then I paused the episode. I like checked my notes. I was like, So first there was the bloody footprint outside Brendan Fraser's hospital room.
And I don't know. You caught it, but at the beginning, Dr. Cox asks Brendan, he says, "Oh, you still doing that picture thing?" And Brendan says, "Until the day I die." And then the next time he shows up, he doesn't have the camera. So his first like scene with Dr. Cox after, where he's like talking to him and he's saying like, don't be too hard on the kid. He doesn't have his camera. And so like there were so many little details like that in all the episodes. It's crazy.
I'll have to rewatch this episode. I mean, Robert, you kind of talked about it earlier with how big this show actually was back in the day, but like, it's no surprise that they got huge guest stars. And I listened to a little bit of the Fake Doctors Real Friends podcast, again, not to keep going back to it, but the episode specifically about My Screw Up, and how they were just talking about how Brendan Fraser was a guest star on this episode, and he was a huge movie star at that point. And like, you kind of forget about that now watching Brendan Fraser. It's like, oh, it's that guy from the Mummy movies. It's like
or George of the Jungle.
But like, at that point, he was like one of the biggest movie stars ever, like one of the highest grossing movies ever. And for him to be doing kind of that like physical slapstick comedy on this episode was really cool to kind of see, and it made me miss Brendan Fraser.
Yeah.
I mean, it's no surprise that I really enjoyed that episode, but yeah, that was a very good episode.
I think, and we apologize for referencing the Fake Doctors Real Friends, that podcast, but
A much more popular podcast than ours, despite what it
What?
sounds like, Robert. Despite how Robert views our podcast.
I thought they were just trying to follow in y'all's footsteps. So they heard.
Well, I mean, yeah, they
they're like,
started.
"Well, we got to start now. We got to do it.
They started March of last year. We started in March of 2019, I think. Yeah.
So they won
So,
Best New Comedy. I think it was Best New Comedy Podcast this year, and you guys won it the year before, right? So
we did. Yep.
Kind of
I thought we just won everything. They just said you all win everything.
And you have a GT Kombucha sponsor you guys, right? Same,
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
You know.
That and MeUndies, let me tell you.
Exactly.
Going back and listening to that podcast and listening to, like the Office Ladies rewatch podcast and some of these other very kind of shows that transcend points in time for life that have become a major part of the cultural zeitgeist is the thought that goes into each one of these episodes. I think that really impresses upon us about how good the shows are. And obviously I'm very biased, but you listen to all the stories that came from The Office, all the stories that come from Scrubs, stories that come from other TV shows, and you understand how that show was so popular and how it garnered so many awards versus other shows that may be on a long time or have a long history but aren't as renowned critically. I think that really that's the difference between something like Scrubs, where it's truly just a really, really good piece of art at times.
I'm gonna push back on that a little bit, Adam.
Okay.
Because I feel like the shows that have become part of the cultural zeitgeist, like Scrubs, The Office, Parks and Rec, Arrested Development, the same kind of shows around that time, those single camera comedies, I feel like they have not gotten recognized as how fucking amazing they are until, I mean, they were recognized then, but not by the people who were handing out awards, who were handing out, nobody was watching like The Office. Frankly, I don't know about Scrubs, but The Office, Parks and Rec, I mean, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, like Arrested Development, they have always been at a threat of being canceled, like after their first season or after their second season, when it's like their best season ever, during the time that we're in now, where nobody's watching TV anymore on the traditional broadcast channels. So do you think that Scrubs, when it was like, did it hit at that time after it was kind of a oddball comedy dramedy, after Friends was kind of winding down and a single camera comedy or a single camera show, was it being critically recognized at the time it was coming out? Like, we talk about how many people were viewing it, but was it being critically recognized? Robert, Adam, you may have the answers.
I thought they garnered a fair number of awards. That being said, and maybe I should parse this out a little bit more, but I think it's the fact that we're talking about Scrubs over a decade later tells it belays a sense of a lasting impression that the show has on, obviously, at least Robert and I. They can't speak for the rest of the world, but
you guys are my world, so that's all that matters.
But you compare that to other shows of the time, and granted, we've talked about Frasier on here, but what are the hundreds of other television shows that ran for as long but aren't probably aren't as well known or as rewatched as kind of as loyally as some of these shows are. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Robert, how do you feel about it?
Yeah, I'm not really sure. I do feel like now that streaming has come along and Scrubs is now streaming, because for a while it wasn't streaming on, I think, anything. It was on Netflix, and then it went off Netflix, and then I think it got picked up by Hulu and now by Amazon. But I don't know that it got the recognition back then. But I think a lot of people are watching it now, and now that there's a rewatch podcast,
Right.
I think it's gotten new life, and so people are watching it and be like, "Holy crap, this was a really cool show," and had a lot of depth to it. So I think that's starting to happen now a little bit more.
Looking at just the awards and nominations from the Wikipedia page, it looks like, I mean, starting from season 1, it was nominated for outstanding casting for a comedy series, outstanding directing for a comedy series, and then was kind of the same nominations. Like later it got outstanding comedy series. Didn't win until 2005, but it was an editing award, and then the last sorry Scrubs the last time it won was for sound mixing in 2007. So whoops.
and maybe it's maybe it's a symbol or a sign of how hard it is for comedy series to really become a part of that cultural zeitgeist. Because you look at the list of really popular comedy series from the 2000s, and it's, I would assume, like Frasier, Will and Grace, Scrubs, to a certain extent The Office, but otherwise it's a long list of crime dramas, medical dramas, and reality television.
And I'm not trying to say that, frankly, fuck the Emmys and fuck the Grammys and fuck the Oscars, and the Tonys are fine, I think, but like I'm not saying
that guy, but the Tonys in general are okay.
Exactly. But I'm not trying to say that I take any nomination or any award as something that is a sign of quality. Frankly, I think it's sometimes the opposite. But it's just like there's that spate of like years where there's this amazing TV shows that don't get recognized until like streaming comes along, and it feels like Scrubs is part of that kind of thing. Anyway, let's get back to some of Robert's episodes. Sorry, Robert.
We've gone through 2 thus far, so we're well on our way.
Well, we don't need to talk about all of them. What other episodes would you like to discuss, Robert?
Well, Daniel, I'm curious your perspective. Were there any that stood out to you when you watched them that you were like, that wasn't that good? I'm just curious. I think there's a couple on there that I think some would be surprised by, but.
So I know that My Musical was.
Oh, don't say anything bad about My Musical.
Was one of my favorite episodes. No, I know it was like, because there's a Grey's Anatomy episode where it's like the same exact thing where a patient
hears
only hears everybody sing. Yeah. Only people are only singing and aren't talking.
Right.
And it's me coming at it from a point like now in 2021 where I've had this history of all these TV shows and like kind of the tropes of sitcoms and dramedies. And again, I know Scrubs isn't a sitcom, but the comedy dramas where I feel like if you get past a certain season, there's always a singing episode. I feel like that was a trend back in that time.
So just for reference, I'm pretty sure the Grey's Anatomy musical episode came out in 2011 and Scrubs came out in 2007.
So Grey's Anatomy was ripping off Scrubs.
Take that, Shonda Rhimes.
Yeah.
Shit. Well, my point completely falls apart. So
those 4 years, everyone was doing it, but
yeah,
That that was
shit.
also during the
Thanks,
height
Robert.
of Glee's popularity, wasn't it?
That's true.
yeah, that's very true. 2007, that seems right.
Yeah. No, Robert, I mean, there were no episodes that I was like really like, God, why did he pick this episode?
I was hoping to catch on one. So I did include one. It was in season 1, episode 16, My Tuscaloosa Heart, which is not a real popular one. It's kind of a silly episode where Elliot is trying to convince everyone that Dr. Kelso has a heart, which you really don't see until kind of the later episodes. But the thing that really stuck to me was when I first started to look at jobs in healthcare, started to talk to this healthcare administrator who was really cool. He was one of my close friends' parents, and he played the guitar and was very, very talented, and has like when I would go over to his house, he would like play music of shows that he would play when he was like in college and stuff. And he kind of reminded me of a Dr. Kelso, kind of a hard ass type person. And so when I see that episode, it always reminds me back of him singing. So that was a kind of a weird connection, but also they have this moment where they humanize Dr. Cox and he's singing about Bunny. And I think at the end, he tells Ted something about his wife. And then he immediately like cancels it and is making a joke that he's like going out with some like random lady, not his wife.
Right.
So it's just like a quick twist at the end. But that was one that's an early one that I remember watching on Comedy Central. I was like, man, that's kind of cool. It kind of reminds me of this guy who also, you would never know it, but was an incredible musician and very soulful, but also kind of a hard ass. So
right.
Yeah, that was one of the ones I was expecting you call out and be like, nothing really happened in that episode.
No. Well, and frankly, the TV and the comedy shows that I've watched are similar to Scrubs. So, not that like I think that there wasn't anything happening in that episode, but it's, you always see those episodes where it's like there's a hard ass and then they humanize the hard ass with some episode kind of focusing on them. So no, frankly, I think all of the episodes that you recommended, Robert, are some really great ones. I would think I would have to do another rewatch, and I don't know when we would do that. Kind of another rewatch to
like tomorrow. We're going to start tomorrow.
We're going through them quickly enough.
This quarantine time, I don't have any time to do anything.
Right. But yeah, I think it would be a minute before I could say like, oh yeah, that's one of my favorite episodes. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
Robert, I think so. I want to talk about My Half Acre, but later in relation to kind of the larger theme around some of the awesome guest stars that the show has on. But I really love My Fallen Idol, and that one of the episodes I really like called My Drug Buddy and My Lunch, where it really humanizes the medical professionals really well, and just kind of the emotional toll that working in this field has on people. I think that I find that extremely relevant to these days, in the middle of a global pandemic where all we see are stories around like doctors and nurses and other healthcare professionals, all the support staff who are just like exhausted from basically being, I guess we're going on 10, 11 months of the pandemic here in the United States, at least. Yeah. I was reading an article earlier today about the burnout rate of doctors and nurses and how they say there's going to be a huge, people are projecting that there's going to be a fairly large number of people who quit the medical field because of COVID and the toll it's taking upon them. But I mean, especially My Fallen Idol, that is a heavy episode. My goodness.
Oh, yeah. Well, and so I've just got the Scrubs wiki pulled up for that episode, and like the ending quote to that, if you don't mind, I'll just quickly read it. And it's JD talking to Dr. Cox at the end. He said, He says, "I guess I came over here to tell you how proud of you I am. Not because you did the best you could for those patients, but after 20 years of being a doctor, when things go badly, you still take it this hard. And I got to tell you, man, I mean, that's the kind of doctor I want to be." And so, like, that moment when he says that and Dr. Cox turns to him, it's just so powerful because Dr. Cox has been such a strong character throughout. And really that empathy fatigue hit him hard. And following the My Lunch episode where you see the character that shows signs that something's wrong. And it's really incredible. The other piece, and this is a slight deviation to it, but that's also the episode that the janitor patents the knife wrench. It is. I just saw that right at the bottom of the page, but it's so funny that like knife wrench, that moment is like drilled into my head, but I would have never tacked it to this episode because it is so emotional and like tense. And then there's also a moment when someone creates tools and he has like knife wrench for kids. There's just so many like little crazy zingers that happen in it. It's fun.
Yeah, the episode right before My Drug Buddy, I very distinctly remember that episode when I watched it for the first time, probably back in high school, and maybe it not quite impressing the gravity of the situation upon me at that time, but like going back and rewatching it and being like, "Oh, damn, that's some heavy shit,"
Right.
and that whole slew of episodes around the like we were talking about before, the emotional toll that is taken upon by some of these workers and how they deal with that in the show and how they deal with that through a lens of comedy to a certain extent as well. But yeah, to talk about the janitor, because there's so first of all, Robert, kind of what your relation to him is, and then Daniel, I'd love to hear about what your impressions of the janitor are, because I think he plays a really interesting character throughout the series.
Yeah. So my relation is he's my father. Kind of a weird topic. No, he. So the janitor starts off in the early seasons, and I know there's the running gag that he was just supposed to be in JD's imagination, but he kept doing so well that they just had to keep him on. The other piece that I think is really great is that he's just so freaking good at just making stuff up on the spot.
Yes.
And when Zach and Donald talk about it, they're like, yeah, so they would come on and just say like, he says something funny. And then, Neil would just make it up on the spot. So I originally, like the first time I watched it, the janitor was kind of like comic relief in a lot of sense, but as it kept going, his character is just so refreshing and fun and ridiculous. And so rewatching the last episode just right before the show, him saying no one cares what the janitor's name is. Glenn Matthews is his name, but no one has asked him that before. And it's like this kind of real moment. And then Donald Faison stand and walks by and says, "Hey, Tony." And like, yeah, there's a theater. Like, of course, he would have this tense moment where he spent 8 years with this person and finally tells him his name, and then it's not actually his name, maybe. Yeah. So yeah, I always originally saw him as just like a throwaway comic relief, fun, but has really evolved to someone that I look forward to and try to keep an eye out for in episodes. Just so absurd and fun, and yeah, he's one of my favorite characters.
I always thought the funniest thing about him, or one of the like how he relates to everyone within the show, is that he is one of the only characters on the show that doesn't care what the doctor's ranks are, if you will. He'll go toe to toe with Dr. Kelso. He'll go toe to toe with Dr. Cox, and he doesn't care. He's a janitor, and they can't immediately tell him what to do. And I think it was in one of the earlier episodes of the podcast, and they were talking about, they're like, well, one, he's a very good worker. Like the hospital's never dirty. He's fixing stuff all the time, and so he's like, on a functional level, he's very good at his job, and therefore they can't fire him. So he can say whatever the heck he wants to whomever.
and
like,
until,
what are you going to do?
I think until season 3, you don't see anyone else until you see Randall, who's the guy who punches people in the nuts. Like, you don't see who is really a one type of character. But I think he obviously is doing something right, and is not afraid to question people, and just has some of the funniest lines.
Because on the in the season 8 episodes, the credits I believe have like outtakes, and one of them is the janitor Neil Flynn making up the story about M. Night Shyamalan and going like bowling with him,
and halfway through changing to a southern accent.
Right? Yeah, he's like, I don't know what this accent is. Like that, they're like, it's a perfect character for this show, because while like you would imagine that everyone's and it completely contrasts like Grey's Anatomy and all those other hotshot doctor shows where like everybody in acting as a doctor is trying to be this hotshot, like all the surgeons are trying to be this badass bros who like suture people up and stitch them back together, and then there's like this janitor who just like completely knocks them down a peg, is the complete foil to JD sometimes, and really kind of points out how much of an ass he's being, along with other people in the show. But can really kind of like, if you're watching the show and you're just like, God, JD or Carla or anybody else is kind of, or Kelso or Cox is just being an asshole.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can always kind of trust that the janitor is going to show up and really act as the foil to this kind of larger than life profession, where if they didn't have the janitor, then the hospital couldn't like function. Yeah, no, I think he's an interesting foil to the entire cast and like medical professionals in the show.
Well, and one quick comment on Neil before we move on.
Yeah,
I think he originally interviewed for Dr. Cox, and just trying to think of a world where John C. McGinley isn't Dr. Cox is really tough.
Right.
But Neil Flynn, I think, would have been hilarious as Dr. Cox as well. Just an incredible actor. I didn't really watch his other show, The Middle, but that aired. I think he went from Scrubs, which was 8 seasons, like straight on to The Middle, which was like another 8 seasons. So
yeah,
he just had
that's right.
constant work of. And in The Middle, I think he was a pretty significant character. Where Scrubs, he was a big character, but wasn't obviously the focal point.
Yes, Adam?
Oh, no. This is very random. But I was actually Googling trying to find the actor's name, and it's escaping me.
It's Zach Braff.
Oh, dang it. That's the guy. Okay. That makes so much more sense. There is, I'm actually looking up the season 6, episode 10. There is a guy or a character who has like a different job every time he's on the
he was like a mailman. Is that the guy?
Yeah, mailman. He's like he's usually like a delivery driver of some
Yeah, and he eventually joins the Brain Trust, like temporarily, and then gets out because he likes to murder people. I think he's also like I think he's one of the producers or something. They have a like a running thing where they'll add death in the first couple of seasons, where they have the Grim Reaper is one of the main producers with Bill Lawrence, and then obviously My Heart on Fire in season 8. Bill Lawrence is Van, the guy that marries the janitor and lady, and then they have a really funny running joke of bringing people that are stuntmen or stand-ins or producers or writers and just bringing them in on the show.
Okay, that makes it. I'm trying to find him right now. No, he's. Anyways, the funny thing about that is like so I'm a big metalhead. And
huge.
The
Dave Matthews Band.
Yes. Oh, shut up, Daniel.
Got it, folks. Got it. Hey, Robert, that's one of those patented Dave Matthews Band jokes that you love to hear on Passion Fruits.
Okay, sorry. It's
To
Mike
feel that
Schwartz.
excitement
So in that episode, he pulls up. He's the UPS driver, and he's giving JD a ride to work. And JD always like hesitates because he's listening to a metal band called Devil Driver, and it's this like crazy speed metal song in that. In that, but the funny thing was, by the time I saw that episode, I knew I had already been listening to Devil Driver, kind of having discovered them on my own, and I was like, yeah, like that's how much the music connects to how much I connect to the music on that show, because it's like, oh yeah, that's really awesome. But random tidbit.
Isn't that the same episode that he goes to pick up Dr. Cox's son, and they're driving in the delivery truck, and the son's just like banging his head to the?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Sorry, Robert, what were you saying?
I was just going to say, so this is one of the pieces with Passion Fruits that I don't 100% listen to every episode.
What?
But the most metal I've probably thought about was listening to y'all's podcast. Not that I don't really think about it or listen to it, but I'll listen to some of your y'all's stuff on it.
If you at least think about it,
yeah, I think
think about listening to one of our episodes about Metallica or Lamb of God. Then,
well, don't you have three Metallica episodes?
We have 2.
Okay, all right.
I thought you were a true fan.
I think I've only listened to one of them. I don't know.
Go ahead, Daniel. Sorry.
So I know Robert kind of talked about episodes that I may or may not have enjoyed that he recommended. I would like, and we briefly mentioned it, but I think we were going to talk about it, but haven't yet. But My Half Acre.
Yes.
The episode where, of course, there's the air.
Moore.
Say that again.
Mandy Moore.
Yes. Mandy Moore. Yes. So we talk about the guest stars that are on it. One of the TV tropes I really don't like is the beautiful woman who is a klutz, and it's like, ho, like, look at this hot chick, like, she's a real dunce and, like, trips over everything, like, haha, doesn't that humanize her? So that was one thing that bugged me. But that's, like, coming from, again, like I keep saying, like, 2021 Daniel watching a 2005 episode of a sitcom dramedy.
So in Scrub's defense, I think they overemphasize that for the purpose of trying to make fun of it to a certain extent.
Okay, but there's definitely that.
Also, the kind of slew of attractive women that come on the show that are just kick ass at their job is
true.
Way outweighs everyone's, because you've got like Elizabeth Banks, you have
Heather Graham is on it as well.
Yeah, Heather Graham. And even Krista Miller is, just this badass, because she's part of like the hospital board, I think, right? But they're all incredibly capable.
Yeah.
Well, and sorry, maybe I wasn't trying to say that there are all these like beautiful actresses on the show that aren't, amazing at their jobs or whatever. But
stop
maybe
trying to cancel Scrubs, Daniel. It's already been canceled. Goodness gracious.
I know our podcast has that much power. We can be part of cancel culture.
Go back and Amazon's going to delete that episode. Yeah.
Yeah, they're
Daniel said might as well remove this episode. It's just going to be the subplot of the Cool Cats Air Band. That's all. It's just going to be 20 minutes of that.
Well, yeah, actually, so that's the huge part of that episode is the Turk dance.
The poison dance,
doing the poison dance, which of course was co-opted by Epic Games, who created Fortnite. Mm-hmm. I'm sure you guys are both huge Fortnite heads, as am I. But yeah, that dance that Turk does to Poison is should be burned into everybody's memory because it's amazing.
And Lloyd, the metal driver, package driver, is the drummer in that one too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, so there, any other episodes, any other kind of points that you want? What makes you so passionate about this show, Robert? We kind of talked about it, and of course, we can't really talk about every single episode that you mentioned. But we can each kind of go around and kind of do our final thoughts on Scrubs as we kind of wrap up this episode, if everybody's okay with that.
Sure.
I feel like we could probably talk about the show for 3 hours.
That's what I've got it booked for. 3 hours.
Yeah, I did see your Google Calendar invite for 3 hours. I was like, oh shit, Robert, I don't know if I can handle that.
Don't worry, Robert. I'll stay on and talk about this with you. Daniel can go off and be a productive human being or whatever.
I'll
but,
go back and watch more Scrubs because we still haven't finished the entire series yet.
Daniel, before we get into that, I do have one more question. I thought that we actually had like hot chocolate at some point, and I'm sitting here with my hot chocolate bomb, and I don't know if I was supposed to do that already or what.
That was that was probably at the 20-minute mark. That was when you were supposed to have hot cocoa.
All right. When was the ad break? I'm trying to get behind the veil here.
Oh, are we supposed to do an ad break? Should we take a break and do fake ads for Robert? Well, the running gag is that we have a cocoa corner, but we don't actually take any sip of cocoa or have cocoa with each other. So,
unfortunately, I'm trying to cut calories, so my cocoa has become hot tea lately.
Well, I'm very sorry, Robert. All right, getting back to the actual topic of the show. I know Robert really just wants to talk about us, which I'm totally fine with. Getting back to Scrubs, really what keeps you passionate about the show, Robert and Adam? What keeps you, and I know, Adam, you said in our kind of text chain that you rewatch the series probably once every year. Robert, do you kind of do a similar thing?
Yeah, and this year, I watched it in 2020, and I'm, end of season 3 right now for 2021.
Gotcha.
Listening through with the podcast this time. I did that originally, and then I just watched all of it last year.
Yeah.
This year I picked up at season 3 and started to listen and watch with them.
Gotcha. Nice.
Yeah.
And what kind of like keeps you coming back to it? I know like we've discussed it with the music and the emotional hits that it kind of gives you, but
I think the last 2 episodes that I call out are My Last Words in season 8, which is I guess Turk and JD decide not to do their steak night to spend time with this dying man that doesn't have family there. And then my finale is an obvious big one for me. But the piece that really speaks to me is the relationship. So the show has tons of relationship and tons of emotion. But Turk and JD, their friendship over time and showing, and me as a impressionable young person watching the show, how 2 men can be so close and can hug each other and tell each other that they love each other and care about each other. I really do think that has shaped how I develop friendships. So I know Will loves hugs, and I give in times when COVID is not an issue, try to give people hugs and tell them that I care about them. And so watching Scrubs over and over again just kind of reminds me of that feeling and makes me feel good to see their friendship. And not only to see it on the screen, but to see it in real life. So following them on Instagram or listening to their podcast or reading books about them, like they really do care about each other, and it comes through in the show. So I think, and it's not just Turk and JD, but Dr. Cox on the Adam. I'm curious if you've heard when Johnny comes on the show and he calls Zach Braff Zachy.
Yeah.
Like every time I say it, I'm like, oh, like it's so sweet that he cares so much about this guy. And so when you watch Scrubs, like the payoff at the end of season 8, you're just like, yeah, that's incredible. So yeah, a lot keeps me coming back. The music is super important. Having somewhat of a drama theme in a comedy show, I really love, but really it comes down to the relationships of the characters that are on the show, and JD and Elliot having a ultimate will they, won't they. And I love how they started with Carla and Turk, and they're together in season 1 and they stay together throughout. And then you get to see the evolution and the ebbs and flows of JD and Elliot. And also it happens to let them bring on a lot of beautiful women for JD to be interested in throughout the show.
I will say it's one of the better shows in which Tara Reid has been a part of.
Oh my God.
Fire of like
She's
TV and film credits that are attributed to her.
one of the better shows, but she is rough in it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I just think from a relationship standpoint, their development is awesome. Like there's times that you hate JD because you think he's a moron. But for me, that's human. That's what we do. We make stupid decisions. We get the person that we care about, and then we see something that's wrong with them, and then think we don't want them. Like that sort of thing is relatable for me. So yeah, that's definitely something that I enjoy watching and continue to do.
There's definitely something about the show where I think this stays true for especially long running comedy shows where there's an appropriate and really meaningful amount of character development throughout the series, but they're still, the characters are still true to themselves at their core. So they don't, no one makes a 180-degree turn in as far as who their character is from beginning to the end, but there is progression there, and obviously the degrees to which that progression amounts throughout the series changes based on the character, because that's good writing. But that's what always impressed upon me is one, its rewatchability and the ability to watch it as kind of noise in the background and still have really funny dialogue and know what's going on, and like chuckle every now and then, or you can sit down and watch it really intently or intensely and get a lot out of the show. So it's at the surface level and at a deeper level, it's a very entertaining show to watch. And then the series itself is it can be watched in order, or you can pick out different episodes and watch them on their own, and there's enough kind of self-contained storyline within each episode that you can kind of get what's going on. And obviously they're like you wouldn't watch my finale, like the second episode of my finale, without watching the first one, but
right.
So there are obviously exceptions to that, but I think it does a good job of once again kind of showcasing that character progression, having that really, really wonderful element of comedy and drama mixed in between the two, and it's a fine balance to make. And so kudos to Bill Lawrence and the writing staff and the production staff to make sure that it stayed true to it. And once again, I just really enjoy almost every aspect of the show, from like the slapstick bits to the funny, pseudo breaking of the fourth wall bits, like when they do the My Life in 4 Cameras, when they switch to a 4-camera sitcom format. I think that's hilarious. Everything's oversaturated, everything's overexposed. Like Elliot's outfit becomes like 5 times skimpier, right? Just because like that's what sitcoms do. Oh, go ahead, Robert.
Wasn't Scotty McCreery in that episode?
I think so. I haven't rewatched that in a little while.
$1,000 to save a person's job. And that's like the whole bit was like, oh, everything works out. And then it went back. Oh, yeah. That was incredible. And I apologize. It was Clay Aiken.
Yes.
Robert.
Right.
I thought you were a true fan.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
So real quick, Robert, season, before we let Daniel, go to sleep or whatever that he wants to do.
I never sleep.
Season 9. What are your thoughts? Real quick, what's your take on season 9?
So in my last rewatch, I watched until Zach Braff left in season 9, and I didn't keep watching. So I've seen season 9 through a couple times, and it's not bad. I think it could have kept going, but also a part of me loves when things end well.
Yeah.
So like, for example, Harry Potter, I think
that would be a great Porta-John name, company name, Harry Potter.
But I think that had an incredible ending, and I think season 8 had an incredible ending, where it left you on the hook. And I think season 9 did jump, I think, a little bit in time, and it was okay, but because in my watching, because it was so different. It was just hard for me to watch. Dave Franco was great. I enjoyed Dave Franco.
Yeah.
And the guy that turns into the murderer guy in Ozark, he was okay. It was interesting to see him.
Yeah.
But the acting, it was fine. It was good. I think they could have kept going if they waited a little bit longer.
Mhm.
But yeah, like when I watch it through this time, I'll probably skip season 9.
Yeah, that's fair. I have similar sentiments about that. I felt like on an individual character basis, I actually liked all the new characters, like Eliza Coop. I think she's hilarious, and she has a great role in the Mindy Project, which like we just finished the Mindy Project, and Eliza Coop has a really funny kind of guest starring role in there in a few episodes, and like that her delivery is phenomenal. She plays almost the same character in the Mindy Project as she does in season 9 of Scrubs. But yeah, Carrie Bechet and Michael, like they're all it's a good cast. I think it, but unlike Scrubs, like season 1, like that show kicked off, or Scrubs as a show just kicked off so well, and immediately all the characters were introduced incredibly well. They were fleshed out, and I think it took many episodes. I think it would have taken seasons to get those characters from season 9 really well situated, if you will. So I'm in agreement. I like, I know it's watchable, but it's definitely not the same Scrubs.
Well, I'll say, Adam, you kind of brought it up. One thing that I have enjoyed so far, and reflecting on the show, because like I said, we're close to the end of season 6, so we've watched a good chunk of it. And I've noticed, and I'm going to keep harping on the sitcoms I have watched from that time. And more specifically, like Parks and Rec. There are like some comedies and some sitcoms where like this one character becomes this one thing, and then they just become a caricature of the character they were back in season 1 or 2. Like in Parks and Rec, one of my biggest complaints about that show is that Nick Offerman's character, Ron Swanson, in the last couple of seasons is just a caricature of his character from season 2 and 3. Like it's just such a weird kind of divide of like this oversized character that he now is. But it like, and Scrubs, it could seem that there would be such a chance for like, or such an opportunity for like, okay, people are loving Dr. Cox being like this hard ass, like, you know, oversized like doctor who just yells at everybody. Like, let's really dig into that. And like, he just yells at everybody all the time, and he's just angry, and then he has to go into anger management, and like maybe his head explodes at one point, and what does that look like? Like they're easy off ramps that the Scrubs writers could have taken to make those characters more of a caricature than they could be. So I've appreciated that in the episodes that we've watched that has not happened.
And I think Dr. Kelso is similar.
Oh yeah, totally. Like, oh, he's like doesn't do anything and he just yells at people. Like,
care. Yeah.
Like, oh, he's let's get another shot of him on the golf course. Like, he loves golf.
I think that's something to be said about the characters in Scrubs in general, as far as how multidimensional they are. Like, like Doug Murphy, the guy that eventually ends up working in pathology in the morgue. But I love how they transition that character from not just being like the clumsy bad doctor who keeps killing patients to transitioning him to a role in the hospital where he's a really good academic doctor and understands what happened to the patient.
He's done it. He knows how they died.
Yeah.
But, where it like actually makes sense. Like,
yes.
Yeah. Totally. I at some points I wish the comedy, and like maybe it's because it's a dramedy versus just kind of a straight comedy, like there are points where the comedy is dark. Sometimes I wish the comedy had a little bit more edge to it, but that's just me. You know, I'm an edgy kind of guy.
Oh yeah.
You get a bunch of Scott's Tots episodes.
Yeah, exactly. Well, like, and that's another thing, like, and you know, I'm going to keep comparing it to my favorite sitcoms and comedies because that's what I have right now. But like the dinner party episode of The Office is like really dark sometimes, where they show Michael Scott doesn't sleep on the bed with Jan. He has like a dog bed at the foot of the bed, or like an ottoman that he sleeps on, and it's like, look, it's perfect. I fit right like this. And like there's some points of that like dark comedy in Scrubs, but it's really just drama. Sometimes I appreciate the dark comedy more than the drama, but I'm very glad we did this episode because I probably would not have gone and watched Scrubs. Maybe I would have, knowing that it's on Hulu and Amazon Prime now, but I really appreciate you guys kind of getting me back into it, as like, everybody should be watching this show because it's one of the best comedies, dramedies that came out during that 2000s time. So thank you, Robert.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. This was great.
Of course.
Yeah.
Shall we, any final words on Scrubs? I feel like, again, we could talk for 3 hours, but
no, I'll let us wrap up. Yeah, I'm looking at the time as well.
Thanks, Robert.
Yeah.
Thank you for letting us wrap up.
Wait. No,
Adam and I will be on for a couple more hours, so feel free.
Right, yeah. You guys can do your own, like, this will be for the Patreon members. You can do your own little Scrubs episode after you get to bed. But if Robert, if you want to stick around, do you want to do recommendations with us?
Well, I do have a quick question. So
okay, please.
I apologize if you guys have already recommended this, but have you all watched Ted Lasso yet?
Yes. Oh, that's what I mean to talk about. Ted Lasso. Yes.
By Bill Lawrence. Incredible show.
Oh my God, that was good.
Similar in my opinion. So it does get dark. Well, I think it's more dramatic, but there's a lot of it that's very similar to Scrubs, and it kind of feels like Scrubs did. And Zach Braff directed an episode, so I think that's incredible. And then other recommendation of something I just started was Pokemon Indigo League is on Scrubs, is on Netflix. Sorry, it's getting a little late. And so I just started to rewatch that. I haven't watched that since I was a kid. It doesn't hold up, but it's still pretty good.
It's been on Netflix for a while, I think. And the only reason I say is because I've already rewatched that season.
Wait, all right, hold on. So, your recommendations, Robert, are Ted Lasso and Pokemon Indigo League.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I want to talk about Ted Lasso a little bit. Because we like flew through that first season. It's an Apple TV show, if you're not anybody who's not aware. As Robert said, written and produced and created by Bill Lawrence, the creator of Scrubs. And I thought that show was fucking amazing. Again, more dramatic or dramedy versus like straight comedy, but also some dark comedy at some points. But yes, Adam, if you have not watched Ted Lasso, but fuck, that show is good. They don't have a season 2 out yet, and they've already renewed the show for season. Nice, but they've already renewed it for season 3. So
right, yeah.
I'm super fucking pumped for it. I think if we hadn't done this episode, would have probably read up more on Ted Lasso and then been like, oh, Bill Lawrence did Scrubs. Like, let's look into Scrubs a little bit. So
no, you probably would have watched Cougar Town, which is the other show that he
right.
You'd be like, gotta watch Cougar Town.
I love that, Courtney Cox.
Yeah. Well, and like Sam Lloyd's in that too, and I think Krista Miller. I've seen a couple episodes, but wasn't into it.
So we'll have you back on for our Cougar Town episode, Robert.
Nice. we can talk about Cougar Town and then have a branch off into the show Community, which
actually, yeah, I would love to
references Cougar Town all the time, and it's amazing.
But yes, so Robert, your recommendations are, go ahead, say them again, please.
Ted Lasso, with Apple TV, and Pokemon Indigo League on Netflix.
Perfect. Thank you. Adam, what would you like to recommend? Have you followed any recommendations recently?
Sure I have.
What? Have you watched David Byrne's American Utopia on HBO Max?
No, I haven't yet. Sorry.
Hey, Robert, if you're a Talking Heads fan, watch Robert Byrne, American Utopia on HBO Max. It's amazing.
And y'all share an account, don't you?
Yes, we do. Adam better not cut me off his HBO Max account for recommending American Utopia too much.
Just saying. There are a couple times where I have been able to access my own account that I pay for.
Okay, it's only on our TV. It's only on our TV.
So that there are a couple of things that like smaller ones. So the Foo Fighters have a new single out called "No Son of Mine," which is awesome, and they've released 3 singles that will be on their upcoming album, which is "Shame Shame," which is okay, "No Son of Mine," and then "Waiting on a War," which is really good as well. But "No Son of Mine" makes me super pumped for the rest of the album. And then I just found a artist called Violet Orlandi, Orlandi, and she does like really neat like Evanescence-esque covers of popular rock songs. And it's just it's like haunting versions of things like Aerials or Chop Suey from System of a Down. She does that cover of the Toss a Coin to Your Witcher.
Oh yeah,
I sent to you, you and Liz. So just think, I don't know, kind of a little bit quirky. Probably not everyone's cup of tea by any stretch of the imagination, but I really enjoyed it. So
nice.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Other than that, I've been reading some really good books like Software Continuous Delivery by Hubble, which is really fascinating to everyone, let me tell you.
Sounds like it.
Yeah. Daniel, how about yourself?
So I've actually followed some of your recommendations, Adam. We've watched the entire first season of The Unicorn. I enjoyed it. I think it is more of a safe broadcast network comedy or sitcom versus some of the stuff that I, as maybe listeners can tell, that I watch and really like. So if we were to watch it again, it would probably be once season 2 is done and we can just plow through it.
Yeah.
And then I listened to an episode of Knowledge Fight, that podcast that you recommended last episode.
Yeah.
And I will probably never listen to it again just because it like basically forced me to listen to an episode of Alex Jones.
Yeah.
And while I appreciate what the hosts are doing, they are just like listening to a clip and then just refuting what Alex Jones is saying, which I already know Alex Jones is a fucking idiot. And like, so I don't know. It's just like, I could not stand listening to Alex Jones, and the hosts were not likable enough for me to listen to them along with Alex Jones. So I appreciate the recommendation, but yeah.
That's fair. And I got a similar reaction. I can only listen to like an episode once every couple of weeks because it just infuriates me so much. But I think the intent behind what their show is trying to do, I think is really, I think obviously it's really good. But it's nice to know that, like, clearly we all know Alex Jones is an idiot,
right?
But kind of a sense of, because I actively don't listen to that stuff anyways. So it's like, all right, what is how can I listen to this or be exposed to the crazy shit that comes out of that guy's mouth without actually listening to his show and giving him more viewership or more listenership than he deserves. So that was my intent behind that. But
gotcha. Nice. So my recommendations for this week are going to be podcasts. I know I've recommended it before, but Comedy Bang Bang, of course, always does their best of episodes leading up into the new year. And in our 2020 year roundup, Adam and Braxton gave me some shit for not listening to podcasts that have a deep enough talk. But Adam, I need you to listen to one specific episode of Comedy Bang Bang, the best of part 4, but they specifically get into, for the first 20 minutes, it's Scott Aukerman and Paul F. Tompkins talking about specifically Paul F. Tompkins doing, because he used to do Ice-T as a character on Comedy Bang Bang, and how going into like after a while being like, why am I doing this character of Ice-T? Like, this doesn't feel right anymore. And how he came to the realization of, I should not be doing this character of Ice-T. So yes, you should listen to that just because, just even for the first 20 minutes. I mean, the entire episode is hilarious. But yes, Comedy Bang Bang episode, Best of 2020 Part 4.
Okie dokie.
And then keeping with Paul F. Tompkins, he does this show with his wife called Stay F Homekins, which is just a weekly podcast Paul F. Tompkins does with his wife, Janie Haddad Tompkins, where they just kind of talk. And it's like a very good way to decompress at the end of a week, because they just like go through their lives in quarantine and kind of talk about life. It's a very good podcast that started last year that I'm just now getting into. But yes, Robert and Adam, please listen to Stay F Homekins and Comedy Bang Bang all the time, but specifically Best of 2020 Part 4.
Will do.
Yay!
Hurrah!
Whew, we made it.
Well, first of all, Robert, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, Robert, are you asleep?
No, thanks for having me. This is a dream come true to join you guys.
Wow, you're the first guest who's ever said that to us.
Yeah, most of our guests are much more hostile, but you know.
Yeah, especially by the end when we've kept them there for 2 hours. Yeah, seriously, Robert, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Yes. All right. Hey, so yeah, Robert, thanks again. Daniel, do you want to give our listeners a rundown of all the of the myriad ways our fan base can reach us via the social medias?
Yes, we are on Twitter at PassionFruitsP2, or just search Passion Fruits Podcast. Instagram, Passion Fruits Podcast. Facebook, Passion Fruits Podcast. Gmail, passionfruitspodcast@gmail.com. We have a blog at passionfruitspodcast.home.blog. We have a great series of blog posts that written by former guest Liz about her time on the Foothills Trail up there. So check it out. Robert, do you have any plugs that you want to plug, like your handles?
We do have an improv group in Charlotte, so when COVID comes back, you can come watch us. It's not you, it's us with the Charlotte Comedy Theater. So eventually, come see us do some improv.
Nice. It's not you, it's us.
Yeah.
Improv with Robert. Again,
it's a single man show.
God, that is the worst.
Single man show. I'm wearing a mask. Everyone else is very far away. And
it's actually just Robert acting out Scrubs episode.
Yeah, the entire episode.
Even trying to play the music on your guitar, you're like, hold up.
Carla, just.
Oh, yeah. I could see that. Well, thank you again, Robert. This was a lot of fun. Thank you, Adam, as always. Good night.
Good night. Thanks, guys.
Good night.